I still remember the exact moment when I knew something was wrong. The office was unusually quiet that Tuesday morning. As I walked through the corridor toward my office, I noticed strange glances from my colleagues. Some quickly looked away when our eyes met, while others whispered among themselves. I had been with Axiom Technologies for 7 years. What began as a small tech startup in my garage had grown into a promising company valued at over $40 million. As the co-founder and chief strategy officer, I had poured my heart, soul, and personal savings into building this company from the ground up. When I reached my office, I found Mark Daniels, our CEO, sitting at my desk with an unfamiliar face beside him. Mark's usual confident smile was replaced with an uncomfortable expression. "Rebecca, good morning. This is Eric Lawson," Mark said, gesturing to the man beside him. "He's joining our executive team today." Eric extended his hand with a rehearsed smile. "Pleasure to meet you, Rebecca. I've heard great things about your work here." Before I could respond, Mark continued. "Eric will be taking over as Chief Strategy Officer effective immediately. The board feels we need someone with more extensive experience in scaling tech companies as we approach our Series C funding round." The world seemed to stop. 7 years of 80-hour work weeks, missed family events, and relentless dedication, all dismissed in a single sentence. "I see," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. "And when was this decision made?" Mark cleared his throat. "The board voted last week. We wanted to ensure a smooth transition before making any announcements." I nodded slowly, processing the information. "And my position?" "We'd like you to stay on as a senior advisor. Your institutional knowledge is valuable and—" "Who proposed this change?" I interrupted. Mark shifted uncomfortably. "It was a collective decision." "That's not what I asked, Mark." After a moment of silence, he admitted, "Richard initially suggested bringing Eric on board. Richard Bennett, our primary investor and chairman of the board, also Mark's uncle." "And Eric is—" I already knew the answer. "Richard's nephew," Mark confessed, avoiding eye contact. 7 years of building this company, and I was being replaced by nepotism. The new chief strategy officer was nothing more than a family connection. I maintained my composure. "I see. Well, I'll need time to consider the senior advisor role. In the meantime, I'll clear my schedule to brief Eric on ongoing projects." Mark seemed relieved by my apparent acceptance. "Thank you for understanding, Rebecca. We value your contributions and want you to remain part of the Axiom family." Family, an interesting choice of words. Over the next 2 days, I briefed Eric on our major initiatives, clients, and strategy. He was charming but clearly unprepared for the role. His resume boasted prestigious schools and consulting firms, but his questions revealed a surface-level understanding of our industry. During these transition meetings, I learned that the company was weeks away from closing a critical deal with Vantage Global, a major investment firm planning to inject $25 million into our company. This deal would triple our valuation and accelerate our growth significantly. What Mark and the board didn't seem to remember was that I personally held 15% of the company's shares. Additionally, my separate investment vehicle, Phoenix Ventures, owned another 12%. Together, my 27% stake made me the second largest shareholder after Richard Bennett. On Thursday evening, after everyone had left, I stayed late reviewing the Vantage Global contract. A particular clause caught my attention. The investment was contingent upon management stability and key personnel remaining with the company. My removal as CSO technically violated this provision. That night I made 2 calls. The first was to my attorney, requesting an emergency meeting. The second was to James Harper, my contact at Vantage Global. "James, it's Rebecca Chen from Axiom Tech." "Rebecca, great to hear from you. We're excited about finalizing our partnership next week." "That's actually why I'm calling," There's been a significant change in management that you should be aware of. I explained my situation calmly and factually. James was concerned. This is troubling, Rebecca. We've based our valuation partly on the strength of the founding team. Your strategy has been central to Axiom's growth trajectory. I understand. I just wanted to ensure transparency before you finalized anything. After hanging up, I drafted 2 emails. The first was to my bank, instructing them to prepare for a significant transfer. The second was to Mark, Richard, and the board, requesting an emergency board meeting the following morning at 8 a.m. I slept surprisingly well that night. Years of startup stress had taught me to find calm in chaos. The next morning, I arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m., dressed impeccably in my best suit. The boardroom gradually filled with confused executives. Richard Bennett arrived last, looking irritated at the early meeting. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," I began once everyone was seated. "I'll be brief." I pulled out a document and placed it on the table. "This is my formal resignation, effective immediately. I decline the senior advisor role." Mark started to speak, but I raised my hand. "I'm not finished. As you know, I control 27% of Axiom's shares between my personal holdings and Phoenix Ventures. Last night, I instructed Phoenix Ventures to withdraw its technology licensing agreement with Axiom." The room fell silent. Our core product architecture was partially owned by Phoenix Ventures and licensed to Axiom. This arrangement had been established years ago as a protective measure. Additionally, I've spoken with Vantage Global. They're reconsidering their investment given the management changes. Richard's face reddened. "This is absurd. You can't just—" "I'm still not finished," I continued calmly. "I've also exercised my right under Section 8.3 of our shareholder agreement to trigger a share repurchase event. The company must now buy back my personal shares at current market value within 30 days. Given our current cash position, this will deplete most of our operational runway." The room erupted in chaos. Mark looked stunned. Richard was shouting. Other board members were frantically flipping through copies of the shareholder agreement. I gathered my belongings and stood up. "I built this company alongside Mark when everyone said it couldn't be done. I've created value, secured clients, and developed our strategy, and yet you replaced me with someone whose primary qualification is his family tree." I walked toward the door, then turned back one final time. "I didn't build Axiom to be another playground for nepotism. I built it to change the industry. You've made your choice, and now I've made mine." As I walked out of the boardroom, my phone was already buzzing with messages and calls. I ignored them all and drove directly to my attorney's office. By noon, the legal paperwork was finalized, and Phoenix Ventures had officially withdrawn its technology licensing agreement with Axiom Technologies. The impact was immediate. Without access to the core technology architecture, Axiom's product development would grind to a halt. The company had 30 days to either renegotiate a licensing agreement or completely rebuild their technology stack, an impossible timeline. By 2 p.m., I received a call from James at Vantage Global. "Rebecca, I've just gotten off the phone with Mark. He's claiming this is all a misunderstanding and that you're acting emotionally." I couldn't help but laugh. The classic emotional woman defense. How original. "For what it's worth, I don't buy it," James replied. "We've put the investment on hold pending resolution. Our legal team agrees that the management change violates our term sheet conditions." "Thank you for the update, James. What's your next move, if you don't mind me asking?" "I'm not entirely sure yet, but I'll be in touch soon." That evening, my home doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Mark was standing there looking exhausted. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in and offered coffee, which he accepted gratefully. "The board is in panic mode," he began. "Richard is threatening to sue you for breach of fiduciary duty. He's welcome to try. My actions are completely within my legal rights as outlined in our agreements." Mark ran his hands through his hair. Vantage has suspended the deal. Our other investors are calling non-stop. The executive team is considering mass resignation. And that sounds like a series of problems that your new chief strategy officer should address, I replied calmly. Rebecca, please. This company means everything to both of us. We built it together. And you dismantled that partnership when you allowed your uncle to replace me with his nephew. Mark looked genuinely pained. I tried to fight it. Richard threatened to pull his investment if I didn't agree. So you sacrificed me instead. I made a mistake, he admitted. A terrible one. But destroying Axiom isn't the answer. I considered his words carefully. I'm not destroying Axiom, Mark. I'm simply refusing to be part of a company that doesn't value merit and loyalty. What can I do to fix this? That's not my problem anymore. After Mark left, I sat alone with my thoughts. Despite my calm exterior, I was heartbroken. Axiom had been my life's work, my identity for 7 years. Walking away felt like losing a part of myself. The next morning, my phone rang with an unknown number. Rebecca Chen speaking. Ms. Chen, this is Catherine Vega, CEO of Meridian Systems. Meridian was one of Axiom's main competitors. How can I help you, Ms. Vega? I've heard about the situation at Axiom. News travels fast in our industry. I'd like to meet with you to discuss potential opportunities. I agreed to lunch the following day. When I arrived at the restaurant, I was surprised to find not only Catherine, but also James from Vantage Global. Hope you don't mind the ambush, Catherine said with a smile. James and I have been talking. Over the next 2 hours, they outlined a proposal. Vantage was still interested in investing $25 million, but not in Axiom. Instead, they wanted to back me in creating a new venture. Meridian would provide additional support through a strategic partnership. We invest in people, not just companies, James explained. Your strategy and vision were major factors in our interest in Axiom. That hasn't changed. Catherine nodded. And frankly, we'd rather have you as a partner than a competitor. The offer was tempting, but I needed time to think. I spent the weekend weighing my options and consulting with trusted advisors. By Monday morning, Axiom's stock had plummeted 40%. Industry news sites were reporting on the company's instability. Multiple clients had put their contracts on hold. My phone rang again. This time, it was Richard Bennett himself. Rebecca, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. I wasn't trying to make a point, Richard. I was protecting my interests after you undermined my position and the company's future. Let's cut the drama, he said impatiently. What will it take to end this? Name your price. It's not about money. Everything's about money eventually. Just tell me what you want. I considered his question seriously. I want Eric Lawson removed from the executive team. I want a public acknowledgement of the impropriety of the board's actions, and I want you to step down as chairman. Richard laughed incredulously. You can't be serious. Completely serious. Those are my terms. Absolutely not. The board would never agree to that. Then I guess we have nothing more to discuss. After hanging up, I made my decision. I called James and Catherine to accept their offer with one condition. We would approach Axiom's key employees and clients, offering them a place in our new venture. By Wednesday, 1 week after being removed as CSO, I announced the formation of Nova Technologies, backed by $25 million from Vantage Global and a strategic partnership with Meridian Systems. Within hours, 5 of Axiom's top engineers had resigned to join Nova. 3 major clients had reached out, expressing interest in transferring their business. That afternoon, I received an email from Mark. Rebecca, the board held an emergency meeting this morning. Richard has resigned as chairman, effective immediately. Eric has also stepped down. The board has unanimously voted to offer you the position of CEO. I know we've damaged your trust, but Axiom is still your company too. Please consider coming back. Mark. I stared at the screen for a long time, emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to return triumphantly to the company I had helped build. Another part knew that too much had changed. I drafted my response carefully. Mark, thank you for the offer, but I've already committed to a new path. Axiom will always be part of my journey, but sometimes we need to close one chapter to begin another. I wish you and the company well. Rebecca. As I pressed send, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. The company I had poured my life into was now behind me, but the future held new possibilities. That evening, as I sat in my new temporary office space, watching the sun set over the city skyline, my phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. Just heard Axiom's stock dropped another 15% today. Ready for a fresh start tomorrow? I smiled and typed back, more than ready. See you at 8. Sometimes being replaced is just the beginning of something better. The first month of building Nova Technologies flew by in a blur of meetings, hiring, and strategic planning. We secured sleek office space downtown, just 3 blocks from Axiom's headquarters, a deliberate choice that didn't go unnoticed in the industry. Our team grew rapidly. By month's end, we had 27 employees, 15 of whom were former Axiom staff who had jumped ship once word of our venture spread. Catherine proved to be the perfect partner. Her operational expertise complemented my technical and strategic vision perfectly. We established clear roles. I led product development and strategy, while she managed operations and client relationships. We've got meetings with 4 potential clients next week, Catherine announced during our morning briefing. 3 are former Axiom clients who reached out directly. What about Western Financial? I asked. They had been Axiom's biggest client. Still with Axiom for now, but their contract renews in 6 weeks. Their CTO agreed to an unofficial lunch with us next Thursday. James from Vantage Global had become a fixture in our office, helping refine our business model and making valuable introductions. His faith in our vision never wavered. The industry is watching Nova closely, he mentioned during a strategy session. You're becoming the textbook example of how to respond when corporate politics trumps merit. I smiled. That wasn't exactly my intention, but I'll take it. While Nova flourished, Axiom was struggling. Their stock had stabilized, but remained 35% below its pre-crisis value. Rumors of project delays and cash flow problems circulated throughout the industry. 3 weeks into our venture, I received an unexpected visitor. I was working late when my office door opened. Your security isn't very tight, said a familiar voice. I looked up to find Eric Lawson, the man who had briefly replaced me at Axiom, standing in my doorway. The receptionist went home at 6, but the cleaning staff let me in, he explained, looking embarrassed. I probably shouldn't point out your security flaws, given the circumstances. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. What can I do for you, Eric? He sat down, fidgeting with his watch. I wanted to apologize in person. I had no idea about the politics behind my appointment. Uncle Richard told me you were planning to step back into a different role. And you believed that without question? I did, which was naive. By the time I understood what had happened, everything was falling apart. He paused. I resigned, not just from the CSO position, but from Axiom entirely. Why are you telling me this? Because I admire what you're building here, he said, gesturing around. And because I wanted you to know not everyone in that boardroom was comfortable with how you were treated. The following week brought a major breakthrough. Western Financial, after their lunch with Catherine, requested a formal presentation of Nova's capabilities. As Axiom's largest client, their business would be transformative for us. The day before our presentation, I received a text from Mark. Heard about your meeting with Western tomorrow. For old times' sake, can we grab coffee? Against my better judgment, I agreed. Mark looked tired, with new lines around his eyes and slightly hunched shoulders. "You look well," he said after we'd ordered. "Nova seems to be taking off." "It is. We're growing faster than expected." He nodded slowly. "I know why Western is meeting with you. They've been unhappy with our recent performance." "That's not my concern anymore, Mark." "I know. I'm not asking you to back off." He took a deep breath. "Actually, I wanted to give you something." He slid a USB drive across the table. "What's this?" "The complete project history for Western, including all the workarounds we implemented for their legacy systems. Information that would take your team months to reverse engineer." I stared at him, confused. "Why would you give me this?" "Because you built most of it. Because it's the right thing to do. And because Axiom is done, Rebecca." "And what do you mean?" "The board is voting next week to accept a buyout offer. A private equity firm wants to acquire us, strip the assets, and dissolve the company." I felt a strange hollowness in my chest. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" he asked, not unkindly. "Yes," I admitted. "Despite everything, I never wanted Axiom to fail." After coffee, I returned to Nova with the USB drive burning a hole in my bag. I stayed late, reviewing its contents and confirming the information was legitimate. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with Catherine and our legal counsel. "Mark gave me this," I explained, placing the USB drive on the table. "It contains proprietary information about Axiom's implementation for Western Financial." Catherine's eyes widened. "Is it legitimate?" "Completely, and it would give us a perfect roadmap for transitioning their systems." Our lawyer looked concerned. "Using this could expose us to significant legal risk." "I know. That's why I called this meeting. I want your honest opinions." After lengthy discussion, we decided not to use the specific implementation details, but would leverage my general knowledge of Western's needs to create our proposal. The presentation to Western went exceptionally well. Their CTO, David Winters, had always respected my technical judgment, and Catherine's operational expertise impressed their executive team. "Your proposal addresses several pain points we've been experiencing with Axiom," David noted. "We'll need to review the details, but I'm optimistic about working together." As the executives filed out, David lingered behind. "Rebecca, can I speak with you privately?" When we were alone, he lowered his voice. "Mark called me yesterday. He told me he gave you their implementation details." I tensed. "David, He held up a hand. "He also told me you probably wouldn't use them, even though it would give you an advantage. He said it wasn't your style." David smiled. "I see he still knows you well." That evening, Catherine, James, and I celebrated with champagne in our office. "To Nova Technologies," Catherine toasted, "and to integrity in business." My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "How did the Western meeting go?" I typed back, "Well, thank you for the gesture, but we didn't use the USB drive." His response, "I knew you wouldn't. That's why I've always respected you. Good luck tomorrow." I frowned. Tomorrow? The following morning, business headlines announced, "Axiom Technologies acquired by Ventus Capital, company to be restructured." It was really over. The company I had co-founded was now in the hands of a private equity firm known for aggressive cost-cutting. As I processed the news, Catherine appeared with a strange expression. "You need to see this," she said, handing me her tablet. On the screen was an email from Ventus Capital, addressed to me. "Ms. Chen, following our acquisition of Axiom Technologies, we would like to discuss a potential strategic partnership between Ventus Capital and Nova Technologies. Our preliminary assessment suggests significant synergies between Axiom's asset portfolio and your current business model. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. Regards, Jonathan Reeves, Managing Partner, Ventus Capital." I looked up at Catherine, perplexed. "What do you make of this?" She shook her head. Private equity firms don't typically reach out for strategic partnerships without an angle. They might be looking to acquire Nova as well. We're not for sale, I stated firmly. I know, Catherine smiled, but I'm curious to hear what they have to say. The Ventus Capital offices occupied the top floor of a sleek downtown skyscraper. As the elevator ascended, I mentally prepared for the meeting. Catherine stood beside me, reviewing notes on her tablet. Remember, Catherine murmured, we're here to listen, not negotiate. I nodded. And no commitments without consulting James and the board. Jonathan Reeves greeted us in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows. 2 colleagues sat beside him, introduced as senior partners. I'll get straight to the point, Reeves began. Our acquisition of Axiom was strategic, not merely financial. We believe in the core technology that you, Ms. Chen, were instrumental in creating. I'm curious about what kind of strategic partnership you envision, I replied. Reeves slid a document across the table. We're proposing Ventus contribute Axiom's intellectual property and client relationships to Nova. In exchange, we'd become minority shareholders in your company, with board rights but no operational control. Why not simply operate Axiom as a portfolio company? Catherine asked. Frankly, Axiom's brand has been damaged. Key talent has departed, many to join Nova. Reeves gestured toward me. We believe Ms. Chen's leadership is critical to maximizing the value of Axiom's technology. The proposal outlined that Ventus would receive a 20% stake in Nova, transferring all of Axiom's patents, client contracts, and technical assets. What happens to Axiom's employees? I asked. We'd offer positions at Nova to those with critical skills. Others would receive severance packages. And Mark Daniels? Mr. Daniels has already tendered his resignation. He recommended this approach, actually. That surprised me. Mark suggested you partner with Nova. He was quite insistent that preserving the technology and client relationships was more important than preserving Axiom as a corporate entity. After the meeting, Catherine and I debriefed over lunch. It's an interesting proposition, she admitted. Acquiring Axiom's patents would eliminate potential IP conflicts and accelerate our roadmap by months. But it feels strange to profit from Axiom's demise when I played a role in creating the circumstances that led to its acquisition. You didn't create those circumstances, Catherine said firmly. Richard Bennett and the board did when they prioritized nepotism over merit. Still, there are good people at Axiom whose jobs are now at risk. People whose jobs we could potentially save by bringing them into Nova, she pointed out. Over the next 2 weeks, our legal team worked with Ventus to craft an agreement addressing our concerns. The final proposal was substantially revised. Ventus would receive a 15% stake in Nova, not 20%. We would have first right to hire any Axiom employees, with guaranteed positions for the core technical team. Ventus would have limited board observation rights, but no voting power. Before making our final decision, I met with Mark at our usual cafe. He looked simultaneously exhausted and relieved. I heard the deal is close to being finalized, he said. Almost. But I needed to understand your role. Reeves said this partnership was your idea. Mark nodded. When it became clear that Axiom couldn't recover, I approached several potential buyers. I was concerned about what would happen to the technology we built and the people who built it. So you suggested they work with Nova. I suggested they recognize that Axiom's most valuable asset had already left the building. He offered a sad smile. You were always the true innovator, Rebecca. 3 days later, Nova Technologies and Ventus Capital announced their strategic partnership. The business press framed it as a remarkable turnaround story. The executive pushed out through nepotism had not only built a successful competitor, but ultimately acquired her former company's assets. Western Financial signed a 3-year contract with Nova the following week. bringing their business along with 5 other major Axiom clients. We extended offers to 23 Axiom employees. 21 accepted. 3 months after being removed as Axiom's Chief Strategy Officer, I stood before the combined team of Nova Technologies, now 90 employees strong, to unveil our expanded product roadmap. Today marks not just a new chapter for our company, but a continuation of the vision many of us have been building toward for years. I began. Some of you started this journey with me at Axiom. Others joined along the way. But we're all here because we believe in creating technology that genuinely adds value. As I looked across the room, I saw familiar faces from Axiom interspersed with Nova's original team. The division between us and them was already beginning to blur. What happened with Axiom could have been just another story of corporate politics triumphing over merit, I continued. But together, we've written a different ending. We've proven that values matter in business, that integrity and innovation can coexist, that sometimes being replaced isn't the end, it's just the catalyst for something better. That evening, I found a small package on my desk with a note. Found this while cleaning out my office. Thought you should have it. Mark. Inside was the original business plan for Axiom, handwritten on napkins from the coffee shop where Mark and I had first brainstormed the company, along with a faded photograph of us in front of our first tiny office. I smiled, tucking the mementos into my bag. That chapter was closed now, but its lessons would guide the story we were writing at Nova. As I shut down my computer, a notification appeared, an email from James at Vantage Global. Nova's valuation just hit $75 million based on the new client acquisitions. The board has approved the accelerated funding round we discussed. Congratulations, this might be the most successful revenge in corporate history, though I know that was never your intention. I closed my laptop, feeling a sense of completion. This wasn't about revenge. It was about values, integrity, and creating something meaningful. It was about turning an unfair dismissal into an opportunity for growth. Most importantly, it was about building a company where merit would always matter more than connections, where no one would ever be replaced simply because someone's cousin needed a job. The company that had replaced me was gone. The company I had built to replace it was thriving, and in that symmetry was a satisfaction deeper than any revenge could provide.